Story 1. The Silent Motel. It was just after midnight, and Darren had been driving for hours on an empty stretch of highway with nothing but trees and fields on either side. He was exhausted and barely keeping his eyes open when he saw a flickering neon sign in the distance. As he got closer, he made out the faded words, Pine Hollow Motel. There was something off about the place. It was far too quiet, even for a lonely roadside stop, and the few lights that still worked barely illuminated the parking lot. But Darren's weariness overrode his instincts, and he pulled in. The motel lobby was dimly lit, its furnishings old and covered in a thick layer of dust. Behind the counter sat a man who appeared almost statuesque, stiff, pale, with vacant eyes that barely registered Darren's presence. After a long silence, the man handed over an ancient-looking key with a rusted metal tag labeled Room 7. He spoke in a low, monotonous tone, instructing Darren to stay inside once it got dark. No explanation, just that one odd warning. Darren's room was a relic from another era. Floral wallpaper peeling from the walls, dim lighting, and an overpowering smell of mildew. The bed creaked under his weight as he sat down, feeling unease settle over him. Thunder rumbled outside as a storm rolled in, and soon heavy rain began pelting the windows. Around 2 a.m., strange sounds began to fill the air. At first it was faint, footsteps echoing down the hallway. Then came whispers, like voices just outside his door. He strained to listen, trying to make out the words, but they sounded like a mix of gibberish and pleading, as if trapped souls were trying to speak to him. Heart-pounding, Darren got up and crept to the door. Through the peephole, he saw nothing, but then he caught a glimpse of a shadow slipping past his door. He tried to shake it off, assuming it was exhaustion playing tricks on him, but as he lay back down, the sounds grew louder. He could hear scratching at the door, frantic and persistent. Paralyzed with fear, Darren stayed completely still, clutching the bed covers and praying for silence. The whispers grew into muffled screams, and in his panic, he realized something chilling. His car keys, which he had placed on the nightstand, were gone. Desperate to escape, Darren threw open the door to find the hallway empty, yet he felt eyes watching him from every corner. He sprinted through the rain to his car, only to find the keys dangling from the motel sign, soaked in rain and illuminated by a faint, flickering light. He sped off into the storm, leaving the motel behind, but those whispers echoed in his mind for years afterward, as if the souls in the motel had marked him forever. Story 2. The Forgotten Farmhouse. Two friends, Lisa and Mark, were always on the lookout for abandoned places to explore. They'd heard rumors about a farmhouse deep in the forest that was supposedly cursed. It was said that the family who lived there had vanished one stormy night without a trace, leaving everything behind. Intrigued, they set out early one morning, driving for hours until they reached the unmarked trail leading into the woods. The path was overgrown, and soon their surroundings became dense and dark, with trees towering above, blocking out the sun. By the time they reached the farmhouse, rain had started to drizzle, and a thick mist hung around the property. The house itself looked like it had been untouched for decades. Broken windows, a sagging roof, and strange symbols painted in dark, smeared lines on the walls. As they stepped inside, a strange chill filled the air. Old furniture sat untouched, covered in dust and cobwebs, while an eerie silence filled every corner. They ventured room by room, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. In one room, they found a collection of family portraits lined along the walls. At first glance, the family members looked ordinary, though their eyes seemed unusually hollow, almost lifeless. But as Lisa turned to inspect another room, Mark swore he saw a face in one of the portraits change. A slight smirk appeared where there had been none before. Shaken, Mark convinced Lisa to leave, but she was too intrigued. They continued exploring, finding strange carvings in the wooden beams and what looked like animal bones arranged in patterns in one of the rooms. But the real terror began when Mark turned back toward the entrance and saw that the door they'd come through was no longer there. It was as if the walls had shifted. Panic set in, and they frantically searched for a way out. Then, in the stillness, they heard a faint, rhythmic tapping from upstairs, like footsteps pacing back and forth. Against every instinct, they decided to investigate, thinking it might be another way out. But as they reached the top of the stairs, they found nothing but a long, dark hallway. Suddenly, the tapping turned into a rapid scuttling sound, coming from the room directly ahead. The door creaked open, and Lisa caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure crouched in the corner, its face hidden, but eyes gleaming with malice. She screamed, pulling Mark back down the stairs, only to find that Mark was no longer behind her. She turned and saw claw marks leading into the woods through a broken window. Rain poured down as she stumbled through the forest, feeling something following close behind, its whispers mingling with the rain. Lisa never found Mark. She reported the incident to authorities, but they found nothing. No farmhouse, no signs of Mark, just a stretch of forest with nothing but the sounds of rain. Story 3. The Vanishing Camper. Alex was an experienced camper and loved the solitude of the wilderness. For this trip, he decided to venture into an area off the map, far from any established campsite. He packed enough supplies for a week, excited for a break from civilization. After hiking for hours, he set up his tent near a small clearing, miles from the nearest road. The first 2 days were peaceful, just the sound of birds and rustling leaves. But on the third night, as he lay in his tent, listening to the light patter of rain, he began to hear something else, a low, droning hum coming from deep within the forest. At first, he brushed it off as the wind, but the sound grew louder, like chanting in a language he couldn't understand. Curiosity got the better of him, and he stepped out into the rain, following the sound. As he moved deeper into the trees, he noticed a faint glow between the branches. He crouched behind a bush and saw a group of people standing in a circle, all dressed in long, tattered robes. They stood perfectly still, faces hidden beneath hoods, their voices rising and falling in unison with the droning hum. Alex's heart pounded as he backed away, trying to remain unseen. But as he returned to his tent, he felt a cold wave of dread wash over him. His camp had been destroyed. His tent lay in shreds, supplies scattered, and his flashlight was broken beyond repair. It was as if something had torn through his belongings in a fit of rage. He tried to stay calm, convincing himself he could find his way back in the morning. But as the night wore on, the chanting returned, closer this time. He hid in a cluster of trees, but soon noticed dim, bobbing lights. The cult-like figures had found his camp and were searching for him, their voices echoing ominously through the rain. In a desperate attempt to escape, Alex ran blindly into the forest, branches scratching his face as he stumbled through the darkness. The chanting followed him, relentless, until he tripped and fell near a muddy embankment. Looking up, he realized he was surrounded. Silent, hooded figures stared down at him, their eyes hidden but their presence radiating a sinister intent. When Alex's friends reported him missing days later, rescue teams found only his shredded tent and muddy footprints leading deeper into the woods. There was no sign of him, just an abandoned campsite drenched in rain and the haunting whispers of the forest.